Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told me last night he is close to a ceasefire in Gaza, but he stopped short of agreeing to new demands from Hamas. He also told me to expect more countries to join the Abraham Accords. Here's my exclusive with the Prime Minister. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Congratulations on winning this 12-day war and defeating the Iran military.
Well, it was a joint effort, and I couldn't have had a greater partner, a great leader of the free world, the greatest friend Israel has ever had in the White House. President Trump has been amazing in our partnership, both our personal partnership and the partnership between Israel and America facilitated the strength of this victory and the fruits that we can garner from it.
I want to ask you about that. I want to talk more about the Iran process, how this all played out. But let me start with one of the reasons that you're here. And you have been meeting with President Trump about a potential ceasefire with Hamas. Where does that stand? Will you agree to some of these new recent demands of Hamas?
Well, look, we are talking about a 60-day ceasefire in which half the live hostages and half of the deceased hostages would be returned to Israel by these Hamas monsters, you know. And yes, I think we're getting closer to a deal. I think there's a good chance that we'll have it. And that's very good because we've already released, you know, they took 255 innocent people hostage, these criminals, keeping them in these dungeons, underground dungeons, in horrible conditions. On the first day of the war, a very senior defense official said in Israel, you know, you have to get used to the idea that you're not going to even see one of them alive. And I said, no, I don't believe that. I think the combination of military pressure and political pressure will get them out. So far, we got 205 out. 205 and 148 alive. Now we have 20 alive left and 30 deceased. If we can get half of them now, let's do it. But I'm committed to getting all of them out and getting Hamas out of the picture too, because we're not going to keep these. You know, it's like keeping the Nazi SS. They're actually as bad, in some cases worse than the Nazis. They're not going to be there. So we get our hostages out. We're going to take out Hamas, and we're going to make sure that Gaza no longer poses a threat to Israel or to anyone else.
So would you be poised to agree to some of those demands, such as the UN back in charge of humanitarian food distribution?
Well, among them, but we have our own distribution system that has been established to prevent Hamas from stealing the food that is supposed to go to the population. They steal it, they take it for themselves, and the remainder they hike the prices and basically extort the Palestinian population in order to use it to continue recruiting people to their war machine, so their terror machine. So obviously, we don't want to give up the thing that we began with, which is distribution that goes directly to the people. It doesn't go through the Hamas, you know, the Hamas pillage. I think it'll probably end up for the 60 days with both.
What about the idea that you will be able to and have the authority to reattack should they break the 60-day ceasefire?
That's obvious. I mean, that's obvious. I mean, we have the right of self-defense at any time, and I think that's widely recognized. I think on these matters, which I always prefer to negotiate not in front of a camera, I think there's a good chance we'll have this ceasefire. And that'll get us closer to the goal that I set from the beginning. Let's get them all back without capitulation.
You have been extraordinary in terms of being effective in rooting out your enemies and the evil of the world. How much more is there to do?
Well, I think we've done a lot because we've broken the Iran axis. You know, it had this monolithic, very threatening control over the Middle East. Iran was seen as a Goliath. You can't possibly challenge it. They had thousands of ballistic missiles. They had their terror machine subjugating not only the great people of Iran, but subjugating everybody else inside. They took over Iraq. They took over Syria. They took over Lebanon with Hezbollah. They took over Gaza with Hamas. They took over the mouth of the Red Sea with the Houthis and the Yemen. You know, they were invincible. And we broke them. We broke them first with the indomitable courage of our brave soldiers, with the decisions that we made that were tough, and with the spirit of the Israeli people that was, they demanded and got the victory that we delivered. But it wasn't obvious, when you make a decision like that. We first peeled off Hezbollah. That led to the collapse of the Assad regime, and that led to the collapse of the Iranian axis. So I think it's a different Middle East. But after the 12-day war, it's an entirely different Middle East, because not only did we act there and achieve supremacy over the skies of Tehran, nobody believed that would happen, destroyed the top leadership, the top military leadership, and these evil scientists that were working to develop nuclear bombs to annihilate the Jewish state. Not only did we achieve that, but President Trump came in and did something that no American president did now. He just threw away all the warnings. This is going to start World War III. You're going to have boots on the ground. Thousands of Americans will be killed. No, he just applied judiciously, and with great precision, these brave American pilots that showed incredible perseverance and persistence and power, and projected American power right at, like hitting a nail on the head. And that helped end the war with a great joint victory. And I think this combination is just a winning combination. And I just say this, President Trump and I have a doctrine. It's called peace through strength. Well, first comes the strength, then comes the peace. And we showed a lot of strength, and I think we have a lot of fruits of peace to reap. We could expand the Abraham Accords. We can create a reality in the Middle East that is unimaginable. And it's going to give prosperity and stability, possibilities that have never been available in the last 100 years and more.
On Monday, you told President Trump that you nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize,
right,
that you sent a letter to the Nobel Prize Committee. Have you heard back? Can you tell us more?
Well, I don't know if the letter reached them, but they now know it's en route. And the reason I said that is, first of all, because he already deserves it. He helped broker the historic Abraham Accords, in which Israel made peace with 4 Arab states. We worked on this together secretly for 3 years, and wham, in 1 month, we made 4 peace treaties, which is by itself should have given him the Nobel Prize already. But he's not stopping. I mean, he made peace between Rwanda and the Congo. That was a bloody conflict, and he just made that peace. He helped make the peace now between India and Pakistan. That could have been, what can I tell you, a global confrontation. And he's working now on peace on other fronts, and we're working together on exploiting the victory to make a lot of peace treaties in the Middle East. So if anyone deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, it's President Trump. And it's high time that he was given the accord that he deserves and that peace deserves. This is a real peace, Nobel Peace Prize, a real one, not a fake one, and a great one.
President Trump told me that he does not believe that the Iranian regime moved any enriched uranium before the U.S. struck those 3 facilities. Do you agree with that? Do you believe that Iran has hidden any enriched uranium?
Well, we think we know where it is. It's sort of buried underground. And we don't have contrary information. That's our intelligence, too. But I think, it's like we had 2 lumps of cancer. One was that could kill you. One was the nuclear cancer, and they were rushing to weaponize their enriched uranium. When they did that, after we crushed Hezbollah and after we got rid of Nasrallah, they were, the Iranian axis in the Middle East was broken. So what did they have left? Well, they rushed to nuclear weapons. And that was one cancerous growth that could have killed us.
How close were they to the bomb?
I think within a year they would have had.
Within a year?
Within a year, probably more than 1 bomb. So that would have been, and they say openly, death to Israel, death to America. They, unlike other nuclear powers, they could probably throw that weapon at us, and that's the end of Israel and the end of Jewish history. That's not going to happen. We couldn't allow it. But the other lump of cancer that we had was ballistic missiles. They were going to develop, they were going to have a manufacturing capability of 300 ballistic missiles a month. That's within 5 years, they would have had 20,000. And if we didn't destroy their manufacturing capability, that's worth like 2 atom bombs on a country the size of New Jersey, Israel. So we had to act. If we didn't act, we die. You take out the cancer. That doesn't mean it couldn't come back. It's clear that if you don't take out the cancer, you're going to die. So we had no choice, and we acted with great force and great surprise and great success, and with President Trump's help and these brave pilots, American pilots.
So what is your expectation of Iran's nuclear capability today? I
don't think they have it, but I think they might try to resurrect it. And in order to achieve the full fruits of victory, we have to make sure that they don't have the capacity to rebuild. And the one thing that we didn't deal with, and we knew we didn't deal with, was the enriched uranium. So they have to be, it has to be made clear to them, and I think it has been, that they don't get this enriched uranium. Mind you, enriched uranium is not enough to make atomic bombs, okay? It's a necessary component, but it's not sufficient. So we want that necessary component to be under control too, and I think the Iranians understand that what the US and Israel did once, we could do twice and thrice.
I mean, why should we trust that they would not start up again?
Because they're afraid. Because they know, they felt the might of America, the might of Israel, and the combined might of Israel and America. And as I said, you have brave pilots. Our pilots struck like lightning. Our soldiers fought like lions. And our lions roared throughout the world. It's made an impact, not only in the Middle East, it's made an impact around the world. Everybody sees this. Everybody said, America is back. America is back. President Trump has said that he'll make America great again. He already has. He's just made America very great again. And I think that serves the purposes of peace. You achieve peace through strength. You achieve strength through demonstrated strength. You don't go wild. You don't go berserk. You apply the punch where you should, and you shouldn't heed those people who say, no, just sit on your hands and hope that the bad guys are not going to chase you. This is a regime that burns American flags, that took American hostages, that helped kill thousands and wound thousands of Americans in Afghanistan and Iraq with IEDs, that bombed your embassies, that murdered 241 Marines in Beirut, that tried to assassinate President Trump twice, not once, twice, and they chant death to America. So you want these mad Ayatollahs to have nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them to Washington or to New York or to any part of America, because that's what they intended to do. So the people who said, let's just sit back and do nothing about it and let it happen, well, they, I think it's not merely unwise. It's what Churchill called the slumber of democracies. They sleep, they slumber until the jarring gong of danger wakes them up. Well, in this case, President Trump didn't wait to be woken up. He understood this threat. And with Israel, our great partnership, we acted to remove this threat. Let's not wait for the nuclear knife to be on our necks. And I think that's good for peace. It's good for America. It's good for Israel. It's good for peace in the Middle East and our Arab neighbors. It's not good for that tyrannical regime, the tyrants of Tehran. It's not good for them, but it's good for everyone else.
Did it feel very different dealing with President Trump as opposed to President Biden as well as the Democrats?
Is this a serious question? Yeah, it has been different, I have to be honest. And it's been, I think everybody said that they wanted to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons, but it's not what you say, it's what you do. It's what you do. And ultimately, leaders are tested by what they do.
Right.
What they do in the face of
But, Mr. Prime Minister, after the strikes, the Iranian regime put another fatwa on the back of President Trump. And they said that they are calling on Muslims to take down President Trump. How serious should we be taking this?
Fully. They just did that in the last few days. And by the way, President Trump and me, I think the price on our heads is somewhat different, I have to say, naturally. No, I'm not joking. I think this is very serious. They mean it. They are threatening to murder him and murder me. But this is the kind of people we're dealing with. They're enemies of America. They're enemies of everything we stand for. They want to throw the world back into a terrible, terrible era, you know, sort of a primitive and violent dark Middle Ages. And the people of Iran deserve better. They are, you know, they're wonderful people, talented people, brave people, and I think they will want to have their own, you know, their own future, and I hope they take their own future in their own hands.
But, Mr. Prime Minister, President Trump told me he would consider lifting sanctions on Iran if they behave. Are there any circumstances that you would support lifting sanctions on Iran?
Well, if we had a really good deal, which means they'd stop all nuclear activity, all enrichment, they would stop the building of these ballistic missiles, which are against international treaties. They would also dismantle the terror axis or the attempts to rebuild it. You know, that would be a good deal, but I think that wouldn't be the regime that is there. That regime has a built-in DNA, and that DNA says no America and no Israel, which stands in the way of getting to America. They want to develop long-range ballistic missiles with nuclear warheads to threaten you and threaten every American, and that's what has been stopped. And it's for the good of all Americans, for the great majority that understand it and for the small minority that doesn't. They've been now safeguarded by our common action. And
the White House has been reaching out to Syria. Are you now working on a non-aggression pact with Syria, and would you expect Syria to even be among those to join the Abraham Accords?
I think there are opportunities now. I don't think it's, you know, I think that, you know, remember President Wilson used to say, I believe in open covenants openly arrived at. I have a slight change of that formulation. I believe in open covenants secretly arrived at. So whatever we can, you know, whatever we can do in diplomacy, I think we should do discreetly and then surprise people. We worked for 3 years for the Abraham Accords, and then all of a sudden we surprise people with 4 peace treaties, and I think more are coming.
What can you say about Saudi Arabia? Because Saudi Arabia initially said we cannot recognize Israel the way that the others have in the Abraham Accords unless there is a Palestinian state or a path toward that. So where are we on that? In terms, I mean, would it be that the Saudis would help rebuild Gaza and that would suffice?
No, it could happen. I hope it does. But I'll tell you what I think. I mean, we were on the verge. We were very close to making a peace agreement with the Saudis. In fact, we both appeared. The Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, appeared on, I think, on Fox News, talked about the imminent possibility of peace between Saudi Arabia and Israel. Then I was interviewed on Fox News, and I said, yeah, I think it's imminent. Then a few days later, we had the horrific October 7th massacre, you know, the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust. I mean, these monsters attacked our people, beheaded men, raped our women, burnt babies alive, and took these hostages. And so that brought us into this great turmoil that we've had to fight to roll back this aggression and roll back the Iranian patrons of this monstrosity. And so that set us back. But I think the vital interest that we have in having a peace, a broad peace, including with Saudi Arabia, hasn't changed. And I think if you have an interest, if you have a will, you have a way. And I think we'll find the way. About the Palestinian state, yes. I have to say this. There was a Palestinian state there. It's called Gaza. Gaza was a Palestinian state. It was run by Hamas. They didn't build peace there. They didn't build up. They built down terror tunnels. They took all the money that they received and turned it into a terror army and rockets and horrible weapons of war to massacre our people. And they're committed to the destruction of Israel. They don't want to build a state. They want to destroy a state, the Jewish state. And I think the people of Israel say, we can't let that happen again. We want peace with our neighbors. We want peace with our Palestinian neighbors. But that peace has to be built on foundations of reality. And the reality is that we haven't seen the reform that we see in other parts of the Arab world in the Palestinian community. its various factions remain wedded to the idea of the destruction of Israel. And the state they want is merely a launching pad to the destruction of Israel. That is not something that is going to pass. On the other hand, I think there are others who could come to the fore, including Palestinians, once they understand that the hope for destroying Israel is out of the question. So we have work to do, and we'll do it. And I think we have a brilliant opportunity here.